How you all doing, everyone? Shine back with another video for you all. I wanted to do this particular video about people who claim that there are contradictions in the Bible. Now I actually came across someone on the internet who this was a rabbi, someone of the Jewish faith, someone who was who practiced Judaism, and he was basically just trying to discredit the merit of the New Testament. Now I'll admit I didn't watch this person's video in its entirety. I probably got maybe like halfway through it. But one of the things he brought up was a contradiction about Paul's encounter on the road to Damascus when he was converted. And he even said, and I'll admit, a little further, that this particular, quote unquote contradiction, he didn't even really, this wasn't his main verse to show why, he doesn't subscribe to the New Testament. So he wasn't trying to make what I'm going to show you. He wasn't trying to make this situation really big to show that the New Testament is not to be taken as doctrine, but nonetheless, this person, he did bring it up. And, I'm one who, I subscribe to the entire Bible, to the canonized 66 books of the Holy Bible. So, I believe that there are no contradictions. I believe that there are just some things that we have to get, the proper context. So there are things that maybe on the surface actually look like they contradict one another, or, it could be kind of difficult to understand. But, if you subscribe to God's word and you believe that, the Bible is God's word, then you understand that, and you believe that it doesn't contradict. And, it is what it is. So, this particular passage, these two passages that this guy used, I just kind of read them over because I know the story, but he brought it up, and I just kind of wanted to just look at it and just to kind of see if anyone ever tried to use these two particular verses to say, hey, look, the Bible has some contradictions. Here's one of them. So I just wanted to look at these verses and just to show that, it's not as someone would try to make it appear as a contradiction. So in Acts 9:7, it says, and the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. And in Acts 22:9, it says, and they that were with me saw indeed the light, and were afraid, but they heard not the voice of him that spake to me. Now, in both of these passages, this is recounting Paul's conversion on the road to Damascus when he encountered Jesus Christ in the blinding light. And, according to Acts 9:7, it says the people that were with him heard a voice. But then in Acts 22:9, it says that they didn't hear a voice. Now, in Acts 9:7, the perspective is different than the one in Acts 22:9, because in Acts 9:7, this is the author. It's almost like this is the person on the outside looking in, telling what happened to Paul, as opposed to Acts 22:9, where Paul is now talking for himself about the experience he had on the road to Damascus. So, the main thing that I would say we have to look at is the word hear, or to hear. Now, obviously it looks like it's contradicting, one says they heard a voice, the other one says, they didn't hear the voice. So, what do we make of this? Well, when it comes to context, is always, and it's important that you want to get as much context as possible. And sometimes the clarifying fact can come from historical context. Sometimes the clarifying fact about a particular verse can come from the context of just what was going on in that chapter that led to a particular verse in question, to see how that verse applies properly, to see if we're understanding that verse properly by getting the context of what led up to it in that chapter. And then sometimes the way words are used, one word, depending upon how it's used, can be used multiple ways. So, for instance, I always like to use, in situations like this, I like to use the word run, R-U-N, run. Now, when we think of run, we think of, running like if we were to race, or like jogging, like running. But that's only one usage of that word. We can use run in terms of like running with our legs. We can use the word run as saying, I'm going to go run to the store. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that you're going to like run, like sprint to the store. It just means you're going somewhere. I'm going to make a run. I'm going to go somewhere. So it can take on that meaning. You can say, I left my car running. It doesn't mean that your car has legs and is running. It just means that the motor is on. Your car is still on. That's all that means. A woman might say, wow, I have a run going up my stockings. Well, it means she has a rip or a tear going up her stockings. And then also, even in basketball, you may have one team who's really dominant at a particular point, and the stats might say, that show up on a TV screen, it might say that this particular team is going on a 12-2 run, or a 12-0 run, meaning that the last few possessions, the dominating team has scored consecutively. Essentially, they're on a streak, but they'll say they're on a 12-0 run or something like that. So, I just say all that just to show that words can take on different meanings depending upon how they're used. Okay, so in Acts 9:7, the author records that the people who are journeying with Paul at this time, he was still Saul, but the people who are journeying with Paul recorded that they actually heard a voice, but they didn't see, they didn't see a man, they didn't see a person. And then in Acts 22:9, Paul himself says, the people that were with me, they did see the light and were afraid, but they didn't hear, they didn't hear the voice of the person that, spake to me. So when Paul says they didn't hear the voice, essentially what Paul is saying is they did not understand, or they did not comprehend what was being said to me. So it wasn't the fact that Paul was saying that they didn't hear, almost as if, they were deaf, or it was just like, they just didn't hear whatever this, voice was. They didn't hear it. In this particular, the way it's being used in the context of it is, they didn't understand. Now, just to further show, why I believe this is the case, I just want to just look at something and maybe even add just a little bit, just to kind of, establish even more of my point. I want to go to Matthew chapter 13, verses 10 through 15. And it reads, And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? And he answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. But to them it is not given. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because they see not, and hearing, because they see not, and hearing, they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which saith, by hearing ye shall hear, and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see, and shall not perceive. For this people's hearts is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes have closed, lest or unless at any time they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and should understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. So, this question was posed to Jesus by his disciples, saying, why are you speaking in parables, or why are you speaking, to these people, these Jewish people, in parables? And, essentially, Christ let them know that, one of the reasons he's doing this, or, I guess the reason, is to fulfill this prophecy. And we know that Jesus Christ fulfilled all of the messianic prophecies that just let he is the Christ, the Messiah, the chosen one. But he came to fulfill, in them this prophecy was going to be fulfilled. And notice the whole point that what Jesus is kind of talking about is concerning understanding, being able to perceive, being able to comprehend. So he's literally talking about people who have the ability to see, like they can see with their eyes, they're not blind, but yet they cannot perceive. They have ears, and they have ears, so it's not like they're deaf, but they cannot understand. They have hearing, but they hear not. So this whole passage right here is speaking towards people that have the ability to have the senses to, perceive or have the senses to just, what's going on around them, but they do not have the heart to understand and believe what's being said to them and what's being shown to them. So here we actually see this same thing about the way hearing and seeing is being used in the sense of people being able to comprehend something, not the fact that, they can just see to see and they can just hear things, but it's all about comprehending. So when we go back to what Paul was saying in Acts 22:9, when he said that they heard not the voice of the man which spake unto me, Paul was just saying that they did not understand. That's all Paul was, that's what he was getting across. So just imagine if you kind of listen to a conversation between two people, and let's say one of the people talking spoke another language. Well, you could hear what's being spoken, but you can't understand if you don't know that language. So in the same way, it's like, okay, you can hear, but you're not understanding. And even some people even talk like that today, to say if you're trying to explain something to them and the person is just not getting it, you will say, man, you just not hearing me. You just not hearing me. Like they're saying that you're not getting it. You're not understanding. You're not comprehending what I'm trying to tell you. So, I even want to use the example about when Moses was on Mount Sinai. And, he was, talking with God, basically in this big, thick cloud, thunderstorm. I'm assuming a very, very powerful, very intimidating presence. And the whole nation of Israel was at the foot of the mountain, and they were instructed not to go up on the mountain, not to even, touch the mountain, and whoever did would be struck dead. And, you know, the nation of Israel, because Moses, he would go up on the mountain and come down and then go back up to the mountain. And the nation of Israel had told Moses, he was saying, Moses, let God talk to you. For if he talks to us, then we're going to die. So it was almost as if, that presence, that if God were to just talk to the nation, that they felt like they would just be destroyed. They'd probably be struck down with thunder or struck down by lightning. It was such a powerful and immense presence. But the reason I bring that up is because they could hear and see all of these things going on. That's why they were so afraid. However, Moses had to come down and tell all of the things that God told Moses. So that just shows that they could hear and see what was going on, but they did not understand, or they couldn't comprehend what was going on. All they heard and saw was probably a lot of thunder and probably a lot of wind rushing and all that. But it wasn't like, they could hear it and they could understand. Moses was able to be in the midst of that and understand, and not them. And then also one more example I would like to give is the account of Elisha and a servant of his. And they were actually supposed to go out to battle. And it seemed like it was just going to be the two of them. And, Elisha's servant was actually worried to say, it's just us. Look at all these enemies coming up on the horizon. And Elisha prayed to God that God would open up his eyes just to let him know that, that God was for them, and God being for them was more than all of those, men and horses and chariots combined, So God granted Elijah's prayer and allowed his servant to see into the spiritual realm. And the Bible says he saw all of these flaming chariots and horses standing, all around Elijah, all on the mountaintops. And the reason I bring that up is because Elisha basically prayed for his servant's eyes to be open, his senses to be able to comprehend, what he couldn't understand at first, what he couldn't perceive at first. So even though he could see, at the same time, there was something that he couldn't see. But then God allowed him to be able to comprehend or to perceive or understand, what was hidden originally. So all of this kind of speaks to what I'm trying to say about Acts 9:7 and Acts 22:9. The fact that in Acts 9:7 they heard, but then Paul says in Acts 22:9 they didn't hear. So it's not a contradiction. This is not, what people are, or if someone tries to bring this up to say, look, here's a contradiction. This is not that at all. There are no contradiction in God's words, whether it be old or new. There are some things that, may be hard to understand. We have to pray for clarification. We do our research. We can listen to explanations on them, pray for discernment. But, if we believe in God, we believe in God's word, we understand that, there are no contradictions in God's word. So I just wanted to do this video and just share it and just Say if someone, happens to bring this up, then, I pray that this blesses, whoever needs to hear it or whoever may hear it, just so that they can feel more at ease, more confident about defending God's word. Because there's going to be people who try to attack from all angles. And the more established we are in the word, the more confidence we'll have, and the more we can be more bold about just defending the word and not second guessing ourselves and not feeling like we can't go too deep into a discussion because we might get to a point where someone might out-talk us or something like that. So, I just want to make this video. So, I pray that God got the glory first and foremost. And I pray this blesses whoever this video happens to come across. So until next time, I love you all and God bless.